Hi, my name is Christine Nelson, and I will be reading for you Book 20 of Homer's Iliad, translated by Ian Johnston. Then, son of Peleus, Achaeans armed themselves around you, feeding your endless appetite for war. On the other side, higher up the sloping plain, the Trojans did the same, and at that very moment, from the summit of many-ridged Olympus, Zeus told Themis to summon gods to an assembly. She raced around, calling them to Zeus's home. None of the rivers were left out except Oceanus, nor any nymph. All of those who live in lovely wood, river springs, and grassy meadows came together and at Cloud-gatherer Zeus's home, seating themselves on porticos of polished stone, constructed there by Hephaestus' cunning arts for his father Zeus. The gods gathered there in Zeus's house. Poseidon also answered Themis' summons, coming from the sea to join them. He sat in the middle of them all, asking about Zeus's purposes. "Lord of bright lightning, why have you called gods to this assembly? Are you concerned for Trojans and Achaeans? Right now their fight is close to flaring up into a total war." Cloud-gatherer Zeus then said to Poseidon in reply, "You understand, Earthshaker, the plans here in my chest, the reasons why I've summoned you. Yes, I am concerned for them, though they are being destroyed. I'll stay here, sitting on a ridge of Mount Olympus. From here, I'll look on for my heart's content. But for all the rest of you, you can go away to join Trojan and Achaean, helping either side, as your spirits each dictate. For if we leave Achilles there alone to fight the Trojans, they'll not hold out against the swift-footed son of Peleus. Not even briefly. In earlier days, if they saw him, their fear would make them shake, and now his heart's so terribly enraged for his companion, I fear he may go beyond what fate ordains and storm the walls." With these words, Cronus' son then launched relentless war, and the gods charged off to battle, their hearts divided in two groups. Hera went with the assembled ships, with Pallas Athena and Poseidon, who shakes the earth. Helper Hermes accompanied them as well, the god with the most cunning mind of all. Hephaestus also went along with them, exulting in his power. Though he be lame, his feet moved quickly under him. Ares, with his shining helmet, joined the Trojans, taking with him long-haired Phoebus, Archer, Artemis, Leto, Xanthus, and laughter-loving Aphrodite. As long as the gods were far away from mortal men, Achaeans won the glory, since Achilles had come back after staying away from war so long. For every Trojan's limbs were seized with trembling fear when they observed him there. Swift son of Peleus, in that blazing armor, like man-killing Ares. But once Olympians mingled in the crowds of soldiers, then mighty strife, who stirs men up in battle, went into action, while Athena kept on shouting, sometimes standing by the ditch they dug beyond the wall, sometimes yelling out besides the roaring seashore. On the other side, like a black whirlwind, Ares kept shouting out his piercing orders to the Trojans, sometimes from the city heights, sometimes as he raced along the banks of Simois to Chalcionin. Thus sacred gods spurred both sides on, urging them to war, inciting cruel conflict. From on high, the father of gods and men thundered ominously, while Poseidon shook the vast earth under them and lofty mountain crests. All the lower slopes of Ida, with its many springs, trembled, as did the peaks, the Trojan city, and the Achaean ships. Under the earth, the king of the dead, Ionias, was terrified. He leapt up from his throne, afraid and shouting, frightened that Earthshaker Poseidon would split up the earth above him and reveal to gods and men the dark and dreadful habitations of the dead, which even gods detest. So massive was the shock when gods collided in that war, with Poseidon matched against Apollo with his feathered arrows, glittery-eyed Athena going against the mighty god Ares and Elias, and Hera against Artemis with her golden arrows, goddess of the noisy hunt, sister of Apollo, god who shoots from far away. Strong helper Hermes was opposed by Leto, and Hephaestus by that huge and swirling river the gods call Xanthus, but all men named Scamander. So the gods went out to battle other gods. But of all warriors in that fighting crowd, Achilles was most eager to meet Hector, son of Priam. His spirit urged him to glut Ares, warrior god, with his bull's hide shield on Hector's blood, more so than on the blood of any other man. But Apollo, who inspires men to fight, sent out Aeneas to confront the son of Peleus directly. The god placed grace forth within him, making his voice like Lycaon's, the son of Priam Apollo. Zeus's son, taking on that man's shape, spoke out. Aeneas, Trojan counselor, where are now these threats you used to make to Trojan princes as you drank your wine and promised them you'd fight Peleus' son Achilles man to man? Aeneas then said to Apollo in reply, Son of Priam, why are you telling me to fight the arrogant son of Peleus when I don't wish to? This isn't the first time swift Achilles and I have come to blows. Once before he chased me away from Ida with his spear. He'd come for our cattle when he destroyed Lyrnessus and Pedasus. But when Zeus saved me, he gave me strength and made my legs run faster. Otherwise, Athena and Achilles would have killed me. She went on ahead of him to make things safe. Then she told him to kill off the Legales with his bronze spear as well as the Trojans. No man can face Achilles in a fight. Some god is constantly beside him, saving him and making sure his spear flies away straight, not stopping till it's hit some human flesh. If some god made sure our fight was equal, he'd not easily defeat me, even though he boasted he's completely made of bronze. Apollo, son of Zeus, then said to Aeneas, But as a warrior, you too should pray to the immortal gods, for people say that Aphrodite, Zeus's daughter, bore you, while he comes from a lesser goddess. Your mother is great Zeus's daughter, but his a daughter of the old man of the sea. So go straight at him with your tireless bronze. Don't let him hold you back with words expressing his contempt or making threats. With these words, Apollo breathed great power then into that shepherd of his people. Through the front lines Aeneas strode, armed in gleaming armor. As he moved, going after Peleus' son among these crowds of men, he did not go unnoticed. Seeing Anchises' son, Hera gathered her companion gods and said, Poseidon, Athena, both your hearts should think about what's going on. Aeneas, armed in gleaming bronze, is going to meet the son of Peleus at Apollo's urging. So let's work to turn him back at once, or else one of us should help Achilles. Give him great strength so that his heart won't flinch. And then he'll know the gods who love him are the best of the immortals, And those gods who up to now have guarded Trojans in this war's battle have only little power, as feeble as the wind. We've all come here, down from Olympus, to join this conflict, so Achilles will not come to any harm from Trojans, at least not in the fight today. Later he'll suffer everything which fate spun with her thread for him that very day his mother bore him. But if Achilles doesn't learn this from a god who speaks to him, then he may be fearful if some god appears against him in the battle, for the gods are terrifying when they reveal themselves. Earthshaker Poseidon then answered her, Hera, don't let your rage defeat your common sense. There's no need, for I have no desire that gods should fight each other in this battle. We should move off to one side and sit down where we can watch, leaving this war to men. But if Phoebus Apollo, or if Ares begins to fight or holds Achilles back, not allowing him to go on fighting, then we'll get in the conflict right away. Join in the battle. Soon enough, I think, those two will remove themselves from warfare, returning to Olympus, to the company of other gods, whom our strong hands have conquered. With these words, the dark-haired god Poseidon led the way to the remnants of the wall of godlike Hercules, and high rampart Pallas Athena and the Trojans had built for him, so he could protect himself and escape that monster from the sea when it forced him to move in from the shore. Poseidon sat there beside the other gods, wrapping a concealing cloud around their shoulders. The other group of gods sat on a crest of Chalcedon. Around you, archer Phoebus and Ares, who destroys whole cities. So these gods sat there on either side, making plans, both groups holding back from fighting painful war. Sitting high above them, Zeus stayed in control. The whole plain by now was filled with men and horses, all in gleaming bronze. The ground shook underfoot as men charged each other. Two of the finest men then came at one another in the middle ground between the armies, both prepared for combat, Aeneas, Anchises' son, and godlike Achilles. Aeneas strode out first, making threatening taunts, his heavy helmet nodding as he moved around. Holding his strong shield across his chest, he brandished his bronze spear. The son of Peleus, from the other side, charged up against him like a murderous lion, which a whole community is keen to slaughter. At first, the beast moves on and leaves the group alone, but when some quick young hunter hits it with a spear, the lion gathers itself, opens its jaws wide, foaming at the mouth as its brave heart roars inside. Its tail twitches to and fro against its ribs and flanks, and then it drives itself to fight, charging straight ahead with furiously glaring eyes to kill someone or die there in the first attack. That's how Achilles, driven by his furious, proud heart, came on them against the brave Aeneas. As they approached each other, coming to close quarters, swift-footed Achilles yelled, "Aeneas, why have you stepped forward, standing there so far in front of all of your men? Does your heart prompt you to fight against me in the hope that you'll win Priam's royal honors against horse-taming Trojans? If you kill me, that won't make Priam put his regal power in your hands, for he has his own sons. Besides, he's healthy, and he is no fool. Or have the Trojans given you some land better than all the rest? A fine orchard, as well as land to plow, yours to keep, if you kill me? You'll find that hard to do. My spear has sent you running once before. Don't you remember? You were alone, I chased you away from your own cattle. You scampered off down Mount Ida's slopes, and quickly too. That time we met, you ran and never once looked back, then hid yourself but inside Lyonnessus. But I destroyed that city. I attacked it with the help from Athena, as well as Father Zeus, seized their women and took away their freedom. You were saved thanks to Zeus and the gods. But today, I don't think he'll save you, as your heart hopes. So I'm telling you to move back now. Retreat into the crowd. Don't stand against me, or you'll come up against an evil time. A man who doesn't face the facts is stupid. Aeneas then said in response, Son of Peleus, don't try to scare me off with words as if I were a child. I, too, know well enough how to hand out threats and insults. We both know each other's parents and our ancestry. We've heard the famous tales of mortal men come long ago, though your eyes have not seen my parents, nor mine yours. People say, you're noble Peleus' son, your mother fair-haired Thetis, daughter of the sea. Well, I can claim I'm great Anchises' son, and Aphrodite is my mother. Today, one of them will mourn a dear dead son. For I think that you and I will leave without a fight once we've exchanged some childish conversation. But if you wish, then listen to me, so you'll understand my lineage well. Many people know it. First, cloud-gatherer Zeus fathered Dardanus, who built Dardania for sacred Iliad. City of mortal men was not yet built here on the plain. His people settled here by the slopes of Ida with its many springs. Dardanus, in turn, was father to a son, King Erichthonius, and he became the richest of all mortals, possessing 3,000 horses grazing in the fens, all mares happy with their foals. Then North Wind fell in love with them as they pastured there. Taking the form of a dark stallion, he copulated with them, and they conceived, delivering 12 foals. And when these foals played, running across the fertile farmland, they'd skim the highest ears of corn and never break them. Or they'd race across the sea's broad back, gliding the surface of the breaking waves. This Erichthonius had a son, Tros, who ruled the Trojans, and Tros then fathered 3 outstanding sons, Ilus, Assaracus, and godlike Ganymede, the handsomest man among all mortal men. So beautiful, gods kidnapped him and made him cupbearer to Zeus himself, so he'd live among immortals. Ilus had a noble son, Laomedon, who fathered Priam and Tithonus, Clytus and warlike Hicaion. Assaracus fathered his son Capys, who had Anchises. He is my father. Priam's son is godlike Hector. That then is my ancestry, the blood I boast of. But as for courage, well, that's up to Zeus, who makes it less or greater as he wills. For he's the mightiest one of all. But come, let's no longer talk this way like little boys standing in the middle of a battle. Both of us have insults we could utter, lots of them. So many that a cargo ship with 100 oars could not take on the load. Men's tongues are glib, with various languages. Words can go here and there in all directions, and the sorts of words one speaks will be the sorts of words one has to listen to. But what's the point? Why should the two of us be squabbling here and fighting by trading insults back and forth like two irritated women who, in some heart-wrenching, raging spat, go in the streets to scream at one another with facts and lies, each one's gripped by anger? I want to fight. Your words won't send me off. Not before we've fought it out with bronze, man to man. So come, let's start this now and test each other with our bronze-tipped spears. Aeneas finished, and then he threw his heavy spear at Achilles' wondrous, dreadful shield. As it hit, the spear point made the shield ring out. Peleus' son heard the shield, held the shield away from him in his big fist, fearing the long-shadowed spear from brave Aeneas would easily go through. That was a foolish thought. His heart and mind were not aware that gifts like that are not so easily defeated, nor do they fail. So the mighty spear of warrior Aeneas did not break the shield, stopped by the golden armor, a present from the god. It drove in through 2 layers, but there were still 3 more, for crippled god Hephaestus had hammered out 5 layers, 2 made of bronze, 2 inner cores of tin, with a gold one in between. The gold one stopped that ash spear from Aeneas. Then Achilles, in his turn, hurled his long-shadowed spear, hitting Aeneas' round shield right on the rim, where bronze and leather backing were the thinnest. The spear of Pelian ash drove straight through the shield, which rattled from the blow. Aeneas cowered down, holding the shield out away from him in terror. The spear flew high above his back and then drove itself into the ground, but it ripped apart 2 layers of that protective shield. Having escaped the spear, Aeneas straightened up, eyes glazed with shock, frightened that the spear had come so close to him. Drawing his sword, Achilles launched a frenzied charge with a blood-curdling scream. Aeneas picked up a rock, a heavy lift which no 2 men now alive could do, although he managed it with ease all by himself. With that rock, Aeneas would have struck Achilles as he charged at him, on his helmet or the shield which had rescued him from death, and then Achilles in close combat with his sword would have taken Aeneas' life, had not the earth-shaker Poseidon been paying attention. He spoke up immediately, addressing the immortal gods beside him. Here's trouble. I feel sorry for Aeneas, who'll be going down to Hades quickly, slain by Peleus' son, because Apollo, the far shooter, talked him into it, the fool. Apollo won't protect him from grim death. But why should an innocent man like him suffer such misfortune without doing wrong, just because of other people's troubles? With all of his gifts, he's bringing pleasure to the gods who live in spacious heaven. So come, let's carry him away from death, in case the son of Cronos grows enraged if he's killed by Achilles. For fate ordains that he'll escape, so the Dardanian race will not die out and leave no seed alive. For the son of Cronos did love Dardanus above all other children born to him from mortal women, though he's come to hate the family of Priam. So now Trojans will be ruled by powerful Aeneas, his children's children, born in years to come. Ox-eyed Queen Hera then said to Poseidon, Earth-shaker, in your own heart and mind you must decide whether to save Aeneas or to leave him, for all his nobleness will be killed by Peleus' son Achilles. We two, Pallas Athena and myself, have often sworn among immortals not to rescue Trojans from wretched death. Not even when all Troy is being engulfed in all-consuming, blazing fire set off by Achaea's warrior sons. Hearing her words, Earthshaker Poseidon went down into the battle among the flying spears and came right to the place where Aeneas stood with glorious Achilles. At once he cast a dense mist on Achilles' eyes, pulled the ash spear of Peleus' son out of the shield of brave Aeneas, and set it at Achilles' feet. Poseidon then raised Aeneas up, swinging him far above the ground. Aeneas soared up high among the many ranks of warriors and chariots, flying from Poseidon's hand, and then came down on the fringes of the battle, where the Caucanes were arming for the fight. And then Earthshaker Poseidon, coming up beside Aeneas, spoke to him. His words had wings. Aeneas, what god brought on such foolishness in you? Fighting man to man with proud Achilles, a stronger man and more loved by the gods? When you run into him, you must move back, or you'll end up in Hades' house, contravening what destiny ordains. But when Achilles has met his fate and died, then you may fight in full confidence among those at the front, for of all Achaeans, no one else will kill you. With these words, Poseidon left. Once he had explained these matters to Aeneas. Then he took away the wondrous mist over Achilles' eyes. He looked out, testing his eyesight, and spoke to his great heart, passionately confused. What's happening? My eyes are playing amazing tricks on me. I see my spear laying here on the ground, but I don't see the man I threw it at in my eagerness to kill him. Aeneas must be really dear to the immortal gods, though I thought those things he boasted of were merely idle talk. Well, let him go. He'll have no heart to try me once again. He'll be delighted to escape being killed. Come, I'll give a shout to these Danaans to fight more Trojans, put them to the test. Achilles finished, and he leapt in among the ranks, calling each man. Don't just stand there anymore, you fine Achaeans. Don't stay away from Trojans. Let each of you go up against your man in full warrior fury. It's hard for me, though. I'm a powerful man to attack so many men and battle with them all. Even deathless gods like Ares and Athena could not fight them in the jaws of war in such a conflict and keep on going. But what I can do with my hands and feet and my own power, I'll do. I'll not hold back, but go straight at their lines. I don't think a Trojan who gets within my spear range will have reason to feel happy. And with these words, Achilles urged them on. Then splendid Hector, calling with a shout, announced that he'd come forward to confront Achilles. You proud-hearted Trojans, don't be afraid of that son of Peleus. I, too, can battle anyone with words, even the immortals. But with a spear, that's much more difficult. They're so much stronger. Achilles, he won't accomplish everything he says he will. Some of it he'll manage, some he'll leave undone. I'll go against him, though his blazing hands are like fire, his strength like glittering iron. And with these words, he roused them into action. Trojans held their spears up high and then turned to face Achaeans. Both sides joined battle in a terrible frenzy. And then Phoebus Apollo, moving close to Hector, spoke to him. Hector, don't step out to face Achilles openly. Wait for him in the noisy crowd of men. Don't let him hit you with his spear or slash you at close quarters with his sword. Apollo spoke. Hector pulled back into the crowd of soldiers, seized with fear at hearing a god's voice talk to him. Giving a blood-curdling scream, Achilles leapt among the Trojans, his heart wrapped in battle fury. First, he killed Iphileon, Atrinitas' brave son, who commanded many men. A naiad nymph bore him to Otrataeus, sacker of cities in height, a fertile land below snow-covered Mount Tmolus. As he charged right at him, godlike Achilles struck Epilion with his spear squarely on his head, splitting his skull apart. He fell with a crash. Godlike Achilles then cried out in triumph, "Lie there, son of Otrataeus, of all men, the one we fear the most. Here you die. You were born beside the Gaugean lake, on your father's land, by the fish-filled Hylas and the swirling Hermus rivers." Achilles triumphed. But down on Epilion's eyes the darkness fell, and then, in the first attack, Achaean wheel rims on the chariots ripped him up. After him Achilles went for Demoleon, Ateneur's son, a brave defensive fighter, hitting the bronze cheek armor on his helmet. But that didn't check the spear. It smashed through, breaking his skull, spattering all the brains inside. That stopped his fighting charge. Then Hippodamus jumped down out of his chariot to flee Achilles, but Achilles speared him in the back. As he died, panting away his life, he screamed just as a bull roars when it's pulled around the altar of Poseidon, lord of Hellas, the earth-shaker, who delights in those young lads who drag the beast in just that way. Hippodamus bellowed then as his noble spirit slipped out from his bones. Then Achilles, with his spear, attacked noble Polydorus, son of Priam. His father would not let Polydorus fight, for of all his children he was the youngest born, the one most loved. He was the fastest runner, too. Now, like a fool, he was showing off his speed, sprinting through front lines until he lost his life. As he ran past swift-footed godlike Achilles, threw back his spear into the middle of his back, where the golden belt clasps joined together on the overlapping body armor. The spear point, going straight through, came out his navel. With a scream, he fell onto his knees, and then black cloud enveloped him. As he collapsed, his guts spilled out into his hands. When Hector saw his brother Polydorus there, down on the ground, collapsed and holding his own entrails, a mist flowed right across his eyes. He could no longer bear to keep his distance. He moved against Achilles, waving his sharp spear just like a flame. Achilles, when he saw him, jumped out and roared in triumph. "Ha! He's getting closer, the very man who scarred my heart more than any other men. He won't be evading one another in the battle lanes much longer." As he said this, Achilles scowled at godlike Hector and yelled at him, "Come closer so you can meet your fatal doom more quickly." Hector of the shining helmet, quite unafraid, then cried out to Achilles, "Son of Peleus, don't try to frighten me with words as if I were some child. I too know well enough how to shout out taunting words and insults. I know you're brave, stronger than me by far. But these things are in the lap of the gods. Though I'm the weaker man, I'll take your life with one throw of my spear, for in the past it's proved it's sharp enough." And with these words, Hector raised his spear and threw it. But Athena, with the slightest puff of breath, blew it aside, away from the glorious Achilles, turning it back to godlike Hector. It landed there beside his feet. Then, with a terrifying shout, Achilles charged, lusting to kill. But Apollo snatched up Hector, something a god can do with ease, and then hid him in a thick cloud. Swift-footed godlike Achilles charged that cloud 3 times, striking hard each time with his bronze spear. And then when with the 4th time he came on like a god with a terrific shout, Achilles cried out these winged words to Hector. "You dog! Once more you're evading death for now, but you've narrowly escaped disaster. Phoebus Apollo has saved you one more time. No doubt you'll always pray to him as you go out into the sound of thudding spears. Next time we meet, I'll surely finish you, if some god is there to assist me too. For now I'll fight the others, any man I chance to meet." Achilles finished shouting, and then he struck Dryops with his spear right in the neck. Dryops fell at Achilles' feet, but he left him there. Next, Achilles stopped Demochius, Philoctetes' son, a big, brave warrior with a spear thrust in his knee. Then he hit him with his massive sword, taking his life. After that, he went at Dardanus and Laogonus, both sons of Bias, throwing them out of their chariot onto the ground. He hit one of them with his spear and slashed the other at close quarters with his sword. Then Tros, Alastor's son, fell at Achilles' knees, clutching them, begging him to spare his life, to capture him alive instead of killing him, moved by pity for a man the same age as himself. What a fool! He did not know there was no way to change Achilles' mind. He was not a tender man with a soft heart, but full of fighting rage, and with his hands, Tros tried to clutch Achilles' knees, desperate to plead for mercy. But Achilles' sword struck him in his liver, which slid out from the wound. Black blood, pouring from the gash, filled up his lap, and then darkness veiled his eyes, and his spirit left him. Next, Achilles moved up to Milius with his spear, struck him in the ear. The bronze point, driven in hard, came out the other ear. And then he hit Echolus, Agenor's son, with his hilted sword right on his head, and the blood made the whole blade hot. Then dark death, his powerful fate, came down across his eyes. Next, Achilles hit Deucalion. His bronze spear point struck him in the arm where tendons meet the elbow. His arm now useless, Deucalion stood there waiting, staring death right in the face. Achilles hit him with his sword blade in the neck, slicing off his head. He knocked the head and the helmet far away. From Deucalius' spine, the marrow spurted out as his body lay there, stretched out on the ground. Next, Achilles, after chasing the noble son of Paris, Rigmus, who'd come from the fertile Thrace, hit him with a spear throw in the gut, fixing the bronze firmly in his belly. Rigmus fell from his chariot. His attendant, Areithus, wheeled the horses around, but Achilles' sharp spear struck him in the back and threw him from the chariot, and the horses bolted. Just as a terrifying fire rages through deep woods on a parched mountain, burning tense stands of trees as the driving wind blows flames to every spot, that's how Achilles, like a god, raged with his spear, attacking and killing men all through the fight. The dark earth ran with blood, just as a man's yokes oxen, big bulls wide in the shoulder to grind barley on a well-built threshing floor, and lowing oxen quickly flatten all the grain. That's how brave Achilles drove his sure-footed horses to trample on the dead and on their shields as well. The chariot axle underneath got sprayed with blood. Blood soaked the chariot rails, thrown up in gouts from horses' hooves and wheel rims. But Peleus' son pushed on, to win more glory, blood spattered all over his all-conquering hand.